Do me a favor, give us a rundown where you stand, how things going in Dallas, and we'll start right there. Shama.
Things are going great in Dallas. Everyone's abuzz with all the new Facebook news that's going on.
Yeah, you know, one thing that surprised me about the Facebook news was the ability to, I got this morning, and it really kind of hit a lot of people's feeds this morning, and it really came out to the point where the general public had an idea about Facebook and the whole phone ability to be able to call for free. Give us a rundown. What is that? What does this mean? We'll also talk about their search capabilities as well.
Right, so that's one of the big new features, and Facebook is really working hard, of course, to keep users engaged. And so they've rolled this out in Canada for people with iPhones that you can call your friends who also have Facebook Messenger. So it's kind of like they're competing with Skype, but not quite there yet. So this is still in its nascent stages, and I think we're going to see more from Facebook, but just not quite yet on that regard.
All right, Shama, now I found my notes. Obviously, founder and CEO, Marketing Zen Group. So I apologize. And I got the right city, Dallas. I had shuffled them around, and I'm like, oh, my goodness, where to go? The second thing was the big announcement this week, of course, was the whole idea that Facebook, and they gave some people some behind-the-scenes looks before this announcement came out, but the idea that Facebook is trying to do more on the search front and how they're kind of trying to, in some respects, tackle the big mountain that is Google and try to get some of those users. Explain what that means for people at home.
So what Facebook has launched is now their search called Graph Search. And Facebook is calling this their third pillar. So of course the first one was, the timelines that they gave people, so you could share what you're doing. The second pillar being the news feed. What are your friends doing? But the third pillar is really search. How do you dig into your networks a little bit better to get a sense of, hey, guess what? Who lives in Dallas? Which of my friends live in New York? Which of my friends really like a restaurant in LA? Which of my friends have visited London, for example? So what Graph Search does is lets you search within your own personalized network that already exists. But rather than going to their profiles to see what movies they may like or what you might have in common, you can now use the search feature.
But, there was such a hype about the whole Facebook thing. To me, this morning's announcement seemed more of a surprise with the idea that you could potentially use it like Skype than the actual search function did. What was the hype? Did it live up to the hype, really? I mean, was the hype, or was it overhyped? I mean, everybody expected this big, massive announcement, and it ended up being just kind of a search feature, which is cool, but was it that big of a deal?
I think from an engineering perspective, the search is cooler because it takes a lot more effort to create query-based search like that. So I think if you're an engineer, if you're sort of nerdy like that you might really appreciate everything that goes into a feature like that. And I think it just scratches the surface. So a lot of stuff with Facebook is sometimes overblown and people get really excited. And of course, investors are nervously watching. But I think the search will lead to a lot more, especially for businesses. If you have a fan page, those likes are now more important than ever before. And that's how people are going to start finding more information through their friends. So I think this is really scratching the surface for what Facebook is really going to be able to do in the long term.
I guess for people at home, and simply put, you kind of explained this as well. A graph search basically means you can search your entire timeline and find out what other people are doing. So, for example, let's say I have a colleague who's going to Greece. You theoretically could go to your timeline, search, type in Greece, and it would search your friends, their pictures, their topics, and see maybe somebody else that you may not have realized had gone to Greece. And maybe you potentially could see where they went, get some feedback, kind of interconnect people, but at the same time provide other answers as well, right?
Exactly, very much so. So you're searching within your friends, you're finding connections that you didn't perhaps know existed before, right? So which of my friends, for example, like Chinese food? Or let's say I have tickets to the Cowboys game and I want to decide who do I take? Well, which of my friends are in my network enjoy, Cowboys the most? So things like that, it really is going to give you a lot more information, access to a lot more information that you just didn't have as easily as before.
Got you. What does Facebook do next? You mentioned the three pillars, and there's people that, you've heard the stories in recent months, even around election time, especially with people getting frustrated with all the election posts, that Facebook was on the downturn, that people were starting to leave. But when you go on Facebook and you look around, it seems like the numbers really, at least amongst my friends, and I have in our Fox News page, it seems like the numbers are only growing. Maybe not as fast as they were growing before, but it doesn't seem like they're shrinking like everybody says. In fact, one of my friends put it perfectly. I'm not on Facebook as much as I used to be, but I still like to at least have that connection. So when I want to have a reunion, when I want to find out about somebody, when I want to contact somebody I haven't seen in a while, I know I can still find them there.
Exactly. And Facebook, has become so integrated, right? So if you're a grandparent wanting to keep in touch with your grandkids, or you're wanting to just keep in touch with college friends that you graduated with, Facebook's so important. So maybe people aren't coming back to it as much as they were, if you're logging in 4 times a day, maybe you're now logging in once a day. But that connection is very much there. I mean, Facebook has a twofold challenge as they move ahead. They really need to keep the user base engaged, right? How do you keep people coming back again and again, multiple times a day? And then their second priority, and equally important, is investors. How do they take all this and monetize it while keeping privacy concerns in check, while making sure that they're not turning off users? And that's a very precarious balance.
Sheryl Cabani from Dallas, founder and CEO of the Marketing Zen Group. We appreciate your time, appreciate the feedback on Facebook, and we'll have you on again talking about the next big thing Facebook does. There's our website right there, Marketing Zen. You can see more and learn more about what Shama does and what the group does and what her company does. Thanks again for your time.
Thank you so much.